to Underrated Movies. I'm your guy, I'm your man, Mr. Alton Henry. And today I'd like to talk to you of another underrated film that you need to check out and you have to check out, especially if you're a fan of this particular franchise here. It's a film that got, I think it's gotten slept on over time, but I would say it's still a pretty good sequel so far after the amount of films that they've produced and made. Since then, this is probably one of my favorite sequels, second to the number one sequel that's made, and I'm talking about Terminator 3. Terminator 2 is still the best, but I'm saying Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines is still probably the best sequel that has made since then, and starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, also starring other roles of Christina Loken, Nick Stahl, Claren Danes, and released in 2003. I do remember seeing this movie in theaters, man. This movie was great. A science fiction action film. The story takes place, I think, nearly 20 years set after, it's set in 2003. So, John Connor teams up with his future wife-to-be as he faces off against a female Terminator known as the Terminatrix, who has the power to manipulate and take control of other machines. And basically, it's the similar premise of any other Terminator, or this Terminator trying to murder John Connor and Claren Danes, and this Terminator sent back in time, Arnold Schwarzenegger's instead of protect him. And here, for one, I really love the action sequences here. I think by one of my favorite action scenes here in the franchise and in this film is the car chase sequence where Claren Danes meets John Connor at the pet house, at the pet veterinarian's location, and they leave, and then John Connor gets in that truck and he drives away. What was it, TX? I forgot the abbreviated term of this Terminator. The female Terminator gets in the truck and goes after him, and then you have the Terminator falling behind in the motorcycle. And I thought this action scene was just so amazing, dude. One of the rare peaks of in the early days where visual effects were getting popular. I love how this buildup of this scene where the Schwarzenegger gets that hook to attach it in the underground, and then the truck flips over upside down. Yeah, that was amazing. I also think this is probably maybe one of the funniest Terminator movies in the whole franchise, because it's interesting to see how this iteration of Schwarzenegger's Terminator adapts to this world and adapts to certain culture beats, like in the beginning of the film where he gets transported into this strip club. He goes in there and basically looks for his iconic suit. You have this dude pretty much doing a show for the ladies, and he goes up to the stage, is like, I want your clothes, is like, talk to the hand, and breaks his hand, is like, now give me your clothes. And man, that glasses, man, the star glasses, he breaks those glasses and finds that other iconic glasses, which we all know, the iconic love for the Terminator. It's kind of funny, every film the Terminator goes back through time, he has to find some sort of clothes that it likes, but it's always the identical black pants, shirt, and then the coat, the biker coat. I think that's kind of funny. And I do like new additions that they added at this time of the machines, and the way that they're exploring how potentially how technology was advancing at the time, and they explored more of Skynet. And I also like the idea with this film that even though their goal was to prevent Judgment Day, I like that it was interesting to kind of know throughout the film, or no matter what these characters did, that Judgment Day was never going to be prevented. So then I think from that point on, I was thinking back to watching this film. I didn't really care. I was just excited to see the Terminator movie. That's actually my first Terminator film to see in theaters at the time. I mean, I wasn't really around when the number 2 came out. But to see this Terminator on screen for the first time, I was just excited as hell, dude. I ain't gonna lie to you, dude. This was awesome. But to know that, and it's also kind of tragic too, especially when it gets towards the end and the Terminator's goal was complete, is to know that Judgment Day is inevitable. They postponed it back during the 90s and was supposed to take place then, but the Terminator mentions to the characters, to John Connor and his wife, that you only postponed it regardless of what you think you're going to do to prevent it is not going to happen. It's going to happen regardless. So it's kind of interesting where time in this film that is mentioned, that you can try to redirect it, but it's still going to fall into the same process anyway. It's gonna reach to that destination anyway. I thought the ending of this film was epic. Probably one of the most tragic endings for a Terminator franchise, because you all know eventually what's going to happen in the future installments, in the future storyline of Terminator. And I personally think this should have been the last film that they've played out. I think they played out, to me, the go back and prevent the future storyline. I mean, they did it with the future iterations, and I think Terminator Salvation should have continued focusing more on the war. I understand why it had to deal with rights issues and whatever the rights land into. That creator has say of what they could have over the property, kind of, as long as I think James Cameron's involved in it. Few scenes I also liked in this film was the battle sequences. Actually, I like the fight scenes better here than I did with Terminator fighting the T-1000. I'm just saying, I liked it better, but it was still great. Like it was to me, I thought it was just very intense. But compared to the Terminator 2, it had like a horror element to the action scenes. This one still had a little bit of horror element, but less of that. But there was still the idea, though, that this machine was unstoppable, and I love the fear that this character or this actress was able to portray in this movie as this weapon. It's unfortunate, though, this is the only film that we've ever got to see this Terminator model. I would like to see future. I would like to see this Terminator reintroduced in future installments if they ever get to it. I do remember the games that came out. There were like 2 games or maybe 3 games that came out that basically, with Terminator, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machine, The Redemption, and the game based off the movie, which I like those games too. I actually like what they did, and this would be a great movie. I actually like what they did with The Redemption, where Terminator in 3, where Terminator fails his mission, and somehow he gets sent back into the future, but into an alternate timeline of him failing the mission and the consequences of that. And then from that point on, he goes through a journey to go back into the machine factory to go back through time and make sure he he fixes his mistake by ensuring that Terminator fails at his mission. That would be an interesting premise for a movie. You know what? They could have come up with so many different unique concepts for Terminator sequels. They had to basically go back and replay the same story over and over again, and to me, it felt played out. I think this is the best film to do that, and should not try to do it anymore. And given this movie is like now 22 years, wow. I still think it's a worthy sequel. I think it's a film that gets slept on with the amount of Terminator editions that has come out since then. Plus, I think this one's from Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers got it. This was a very, I think, underrated sequel, and I thought the action scenes here were just extremely phenomenal for this movie, and that's what I really miss with the Terminator franchise. That the action sequences for sci-fi action, they felt very horror-ish. And I would like for the franchise to go back to feeling like horror films. Because there's an appeal of feeling terror in action sequences. Like I mentioned in this other review of, I think it was Tokyo Sinks. There's a sense of horror to these sequences. And if you remove that, yeah, it's entertaining, it's fun, but it doesn't feel like I have to fear from the enemy. And I feel less rooted to root for the main characters to win if there's no scary element added to these villains. So that's just me. I do think this is an underrated sequel. I would love to see him re-release it in theaters, man. I'm just saying. Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. Have you seen it? Comment below. Let me know if you have, and you better have seen it if you like Terminator. And let me know what is your favorite underrated movie. And also, drop down in the comments below. What do you believe is probably your favorite underrated Terminator film?